Have you been looking for a gimbal for your iPhone and you don't know which one to get? Well, today we're checking out the all-new Insta360 Flow 2 Pro. This gimbal promises to give you a whole lot of awesome pro-like features in a really cheap, compact, pocketable size. So let's get into the video and see what this thing can really do. All right, so let's get this thing opened up here. I have to say that as I said earlier, the Insta360 Flow Pro 2 was my favorite gimbal. I actually ended up sending it back. The only reason was because I wanted to get it with my Best Buy warranty, and I didn't have that, or they didn't have it at the time when I got it to review. So I sent it back and I was like, all right, I'll wait. They'll get it in stock. They never got that gimbal in stock, and it drove me nuts. However, I'm kind of happy about that because they launched the Flow 2 Pro, and it promises to be better. So it looks like it's a lot the same of what we had with the Flow Pro 2. So let's go ahead, we'll open the little pamphlet thing up here. Gotta say, that's pretty nice. It gives you all of your instructions, and there's our USB-C cable, wish that was C to C. We've got our bag here, just like with the Flow Pro 2, our manuals that are exploding on the table here, and our stickers. I, again, love my stickers. So this bag was really cool on the Flow 2 Pro. I loved it. I do recommend getting maybe a case. They sell a case kind of like the GoPro hard case, and if you're gonna travel with this, put it in a backpack, maybe get that. That's a good idea, I think. Let's go ahead, let's get the gimbal out here. And that looks like, again, that is it out of the box. So we've got our phone mount that was in the previous gimbal, it looks like. I'm gonna grab my phone behind me here real fast. And let's go ahead and let's see if this is indeed. Yep, same exact phone mount, holds on the exact same way. Noted as in my other video, I believe that you want to make sure that little lock icon is facing upward. And in fact, they say, place phone facing up on the side right here when you're doing it. So also this little notch at the top there, that is always facing the top of the phone. So that is really cool. It does come close if you have a 16 Pro Max or any of the iPhone 16 line. It comes kind of close to that button if you've got the shutter button. If you have a case on it, even if you didn't, it would be close. So just keep that in mind. I'll go ahead and set this over here. And we've got our gimbal. They did change how this opens. So the other one kind of did this weird twist. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to pop this on here like this. So supposedly it's a single flip, and look at that. You are good to go. That definitely fixed one of the issues that I had with it was it was a little bit like you had to flip it just the right way. But I mean, this just, boom, done. It is so, and I just freaked it out because it wanted me to shut it off and I didn't. But that is really, really cool. All right, so I want to show you some of the shooting modes and what you can do with this gimbal. So what I decided to do was take it out in the yard and see what I could do. So I used my wife's garden. She's got some really good looking cabbage and broccoli and stuff like that going right now. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead and just film that. Now I'm not doing anything super cinematic. We love that word here on YouTube, but I'm just showing you how stable the footage can be. So the first thing that I wanted to do was go ahead and show you what it would be like in the follow mode. So this follow mode is gonna follow your up and down movements and your left and right. So it's going to use the pan and tilt axes of your gimbal to allow that super smooth movement. And then on top of that, you have another mode, and that's pan follow. Now pan follow is gonna lock that tilt axis in place, and it's going to only work on the left and right, the pan, and that's going to allow you to kind of do that follow your left or right movement. So if you're pulling something into the frame or you're making something leave the frame, you know, on the left side, the right side, whatever it is, that's what this is going to do. Now then you also have an FPV mode, and that's really cool because it's going to allow you to do an FPV style drone shot. Now that drone shot is really honestly pretty good. It's going to follow left, right, it's going to add the roll to it, it's going to do everything. And that is just kind of where the gimbal is stabilizing the footage, but it is following your movements as if it was first person, thus FPV. And then you have your regular auto mode, and that's gonna be a very beginner mode. You don't have to worry about anything. The gimbal is gonna decide what mode you need to be in and kind of auto switch based on the action going on. So that was kind of what I tested out with this gimbal. I also put it into a new mode that was not in the other gimbal I tested, the Flow Pro 2, and I really am glad they added that. So one of the things with mobile phone gimbals is that unlike my Ronin RS4 Pro, the tilt arm gets in the way. It has a stopping point. It won't like tilt past a certain point, and it doesn't allow you to do a lot of those really cool shots, like reveal shots or, you know, dive in shots, stuff like that I could do with my RS4 Pro. But Insta360 added that to the Flow 2 Pro, and I'm really glad they did. Now what you gotta do is you extend the selfie stick and you flip the gimbal head aiming at you, and then you turn the stick, and it feels weird at first. It feels like it's gonna break it, but you turn the stick to the right, and then it's gonna put you in free tilt mode. Now that is going to give you the ability to do kind of this dive in and pull out shot, because it's going to allow the gimbal to roll, or, you know, pan. It's on the pan axis that it's doing it, pan up and down, but do it in a 360-degree time, because it's using that head of the gimbal that can go 360 degrees. So that is something that's really, really cool. And as you can see here, going through the garden, that I can do that and I can kind of dive in. But if I was to put this in the regular mode and turn this to where, you know, it was, let's say you just up and down, and I was, you know, doing a regular pan, or tilt rather, I was doing a regular tilt, like the gimbal would go up to the top, it would stop, and then it would drop down real quick. And it's because it gets to the top of that tilt and it can't get past it. And it's just a thing with mobile phone gimbals, and I'm really glad that Insta360 added that. Another thing to note is that at the bottom here, it actually has an on and an off mode where it will, you know, if you don't put it back, it will definitely give you an issue and the gimbal will freak out. So do make sure that when you're done with it, roll that stick back to the right, turn to the left, and then flip that head back up, and then you're good to go. And also make sure that your head is level when you push it back in, or it's not gonna seat properly, because this particular gimbal kind of is at an angle when it tries to seat down. And I will say I wish that that wasn't an issue, because it makes it a little bit difficult to seat it just real quickly. But just keep that in mind. You also have a lock, just like a regular gimbal, so that's gonna lock all of your axes, and it's going to just stabilize the footage and allow you to get that super, you know, smooth if you're locked on a subject or whatever it is. So that is just really, really cool. So another mode that this gimbal has is a barrel roll. So much like a professional gimbal, you can do that inception barrel roll, but it has its limitations and it really doesn't roll very far. So what you'll see in this clip is that it gets to a point and it stops. And the clip stops here because it literally will not go anymore. And I'll go ahead and demo this in front of you. So if you press and hold the C button, it'll put it in barrel roll mode, it'll start recording, and it will auto roll here. But it's only going to go to about that point right there. And then it's gonna flip back, stop recording, and that was your barrel roll. That's not really a true barrel roll. However, if you wanna get around that, put the gimbal into FPV mode. And FPV mode is going to allow you to get a full or almost full 360-degree barrel roll right here by using the zoom wheel. And that gives you that barrel roll effect with the gimbal. Now, I will note that if you are, you know, vertical with the gimbal, it does tend to have an issue at a certain point where it will stop rolling. Like you'll see right here, it stops at 300. Once it hits 360 and a little bit over, it's going to stop, and then it's not going to complete that. However, if you are trying to film something that is downward facing, so say you're doing a barrel roll and you're pulling up, when you do that, that will give you a 360-degree roll, and you don't have to worry about it. It's just going to roll up. Now, you do have to worry about the bar getting in the way, but that is just a nature of, you know, the fact that we've got this tilt arm here, and it's a, you know, iPhone gimbal, and that's something that we don't usually have to worry about. But that free tilt mode that I showed earlier, that is something that gets that tilt arm out of the way and allows you the ability to not worry about that tilt arm because it's using this pan axis here instead of using the tilt axis. And that is just really, really cool. Again, that Insta included it. So you've also got a couple other modes that I didn't test out just because I don't tend to use them very often, but you have time shift and time lapse. And that is something that's really cool if you're into it. If you're doing time lapses or time shifts, they do recommend that you have these on a tripod when you use, I believe it is time lapse and or time shift. That's just something that they recommend as when you're switching to it. And you also have a slow-mo mode here, so you can use your slow-mo on your iPhone, and that's going to give you the ability to go up to that 240 frames a second at 1080. Now, if you want to use this gimbal with your actual full slow-mo mode at 4K 120, if you have an iPhone 16 Pro Max, then you're going to want to go ahead and switch over to the actual iPhone camera app, and you'll still get a lot of the, you'll get the gimbal stabilization, you'll get the active track, and you can use that slow-mo, the 4K high resolution slow-mo over there. So just keep that in mind. You're not going to get that high resolution 4K 120 out of this gimbal, at least not yet with the current app as it stands. Now you also have a mode that I didn't test out a whole lot. I've got a clip here that I'll put in, and I didn't think it did really well, but it's the dolly zoom. Now the dolly zoom is really, really cool. I was testing this by myself, so I didn't have someone to actually set the active track, because that's what it does. You draw the box and then it's going to create that zoom effect as you back away, which is really cool when it works. I used this really cool little device that I picked up. It's the DL400 from Newer. It's a little like robot dolly, I guess you'll say, or like RC car type looking thing. And you can put tripods on it. You can put, gimbals on it. You can put action cameras on it, and it doesn't go very fast, but it gives you a really slow, smooth pull away. Now, one thing I had a problem with was it wasn't going fast enough, I think, for the dolly zoom. I think the dolly zoom wants you to, back up fairly quickly. So just keep that in mind. If you're using it, you do need somebody to actually be filming you to create that effect. I was unable by myself to get this done. So if you're a solo creator or just running and gunning solo, you're not going to be able to create that dolly zoom effect with for yourself. And I'm going to go ahead and tap once on the thing and make sure that my active track is working, and it is. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit forward. Now at this point, the gimbal has continued, even though I lost, I had to go over here, I had to work with the camera, I had to do something, but the dolly here and the gimbal are going just down the road. Now that just went over a bump, so I'm very interested to see what that looks like in the footage, but I can walk along it, I can come up here, I can be like I was presenting something, so here's this thing, whatever it may be, and then we're gonna walk back over here, and we're gonna see this other thing over here, and with the 360-degree pan ability of the gimbal here, the Flow 2 Pro, the active track, and this dolly, I think it really makes a nice little combo, if you will. Now, obviously this thing's about 180 bucks, and not everybody's gonna have one, but for a content creator, I think it's something that is really, really useful, and I really like it. And to give you an idea, that just went over 3 bumps, so I'm very interested to see what that footage looked like. To see how the gimbal handled it. Also, I don't have this on a super stable format. I have this on a selfie stick meant for the Osmo Action 5, and I am balancing my iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Flow 2 Pro. So that kind of gives you an idea of what this is doing. Now this is about to go off the ground, so I'm going to go ahead and do is I will stand here and just give you what you could do with it. So it's just slowly coming at me, and I'm talking, and I can create my shot, and then as soon as my shot is over, I can go ahead, I can stop recording, and just like that, I'm good to go. And so I pick up my whole setup here, and I'm walking back to my main camera, and check that out. I got a motorized dolly and a gimbal all working together, and I think it's a really cool setup. So that was just kind of a bonus and some a use case that I thought was cool. You've also got widescreen mode, so that's going to be in that cinematic, ultra widescreen display. So ordinarily you're filming in 4K 30, 4K 60, but when you go into that ultra wide or widescreen mode, you're getting 4K 30. So it's not gonna take you up to 4K 60, but you are gonna get some really nice wide footage. But that's just something to keep in mind, is you have that ability in this gimbal to do that. And I think it's really cool that they included that. It's kind of like a cinematic ultra wide. So the main thing that I love about this gimbal is its active track. Its active track is amazing. So let's go ahead and let's check that out right now and see how good it is, because I think it's honestly as good, if not a little bit better, than the Flow Pro 2 when I tested it before. All right, so another cool feature about this gimbal is it has this little like selfie mirror right here, and it allows you to see yourself as if the camera was seeing you. So it's kind of like having a rear facing screen, so you can use the main camera while using the gimbal. That is really cool, and it seems to be fairly decently similar to what you would see on the back of the camera. And so I will go ahead and get some B-roll of that, but you basically use it so that you can see yourself while talking to the camera, and you can use the better cameras on your phone. All right, so just like with the Insta360 Flow Pro 2, the Flow 2 Pro has AI Active Track 4.0 this time, and that gives you the ability to track any moving subject. It also has a zoom distance that you can do. It's supposed to be able to like pick up a subject really far away and then like zoom in as you walk close, which is not advisable. I don't advise using that. Rather to use it, you're gonna lose a lot of quality on your camera zooming in that far, because you can go up to like 15x on the iPhone, and that's really cool, but you want to use your main lenses, right? So let me go ahead here and I will deactivate active track. So as you can see, the Pocket is tracking me, but the Flow 2 Pro is not. So let me go ahead, I'm going to hit record here, and then I will tap on the active track, and right there you will notice that the Flow 2 Pro is tracking me, and it does a really, really good job. So let's go ahead and let's test and see if it can do as good a job as the Flow Pro 2. So I'm gonna walk behind a Sago Palm over here. I'm gonna disappear for a couple seconds out of frame. We'll see if the Pocket will pick me back up, and we'll see if the Flow 2 Pro can pick me up. So let's go ahead, we'll walk over here, and I will disappear. I walked behind an object. The camera has lost me, and I'm gonna go ahead and stand over here for a few seconds. Go ahead and let the camera take a really long think on whether or not it wants to pick me back up. And just like that, the iPhone on the Flow 2 Pro has me perfectly. So I am walking around here, and I will walk back over to my Pocket that does not have me here, because it's still stuck where I was at, where it thinks I was at, and it lost me. So something that is really, really cool, and I'll go ahead and double tap this button here and get this camera retracking me here. There we go. Now I have active track on that camera. So that is something that a $550, I think $550, $560 camera, or $670 camera, depending on what model you get, loses its tracking ability pretty quickly. And we tested this out with the Flow Pro 2, and it was really, really great. And the Flow 2 Pro seems to do as good as the previous model. So what I'll go ahead and do is just do a quick run around. I'll go ahead and run at a distance, see if it keeps a track at me when I run out towards the road, and then see what, where the cameras lose me. I know the Pocket's gonna drop. So let's go ahead and let's go. All right, so I'm gonna run to a distance that's out here, and let's see how far it will track me. I'm gonna run over here, and it looks like the Flow Pro 2 is really, really good at tracking. It's amazing. Now, I am surprised the Pocket kept me that entire time, I think, but at least it picked me back up. But that is just to give you an idea of what this gimbal is capable of and what you could use it for. So let's go ahead and let's check out the zoom feature in tracking and see how that works. As I walk away from the camera now, I'm gonna walk a little bit faster. It's going to zoom to try to keep me in the frame as tight as possible. So this is something that obviously is not good if you're trying to keep quality on your camera or on your footage, but it is something that will track you, it will keep you in frame, and it's honestly pretty good for kind of a once or twice type of a use situation. But that is AI Auto Zoom and AI Active Track with the Flow 2 Pro. So with Active Track, they've also now included a tracking plus mode. So that's going to require you to be on a tripod, which I was outside, And you also can activate active zoom tracking. Now that is something that's really cool. It'll go up to 15 times zoom. You will lose resolution, and you have to drop down to 1080p 60 frames a second. You can't shoot in 4K, unfortunately, but you do get the ability to kind of keep the subject in frame up to that 15 times zoom, and even past that, it'll stay at 15x and follow you around. But then as you walk closer to the camera, it's going to pull back out and get, back to a regular lens. Now keep in mind when you use this that you are going to lose resolution pretty quickly because you're using digital zoom and not your optical zoom. And so just keep that in mind. I would only use that if you really, really needed it to create some kind of shot, and then maybe you put it into a AI that, cleaned it up a lot, because it gets really pixelated really quickly, in my opinion. And especially since you're shooting at 1080 and not 4K, so you're not getting that extra croppability out of that higher resolution. So we've also got the sprinting test. So let's go ahead and let's check out how good this does with sprinting. So you can see here that the iPhone footage just handheld is really, really unstable, which we already knew that was the case. So let's go ahead and check out the action mode on the iPhone, which is a really cool mode, but we're gonna see how stable that footage is when compared to the gimbal footage, and then also the quality reduction loss. So with the gimbal, we're gonna get that 4K 60, whereas when we do the action mode on the iPhone, it's going to digitally crop into the sensor, and it's going to create the stabilization out of cropping in, and that's going to only give us a 2.8K resolution. So we're going to lose resolution to gain the ability to not use the gimbals. So as you can see here, the stabilized iPhone footage is actually pretty good. The resolution is not bad. We definitely can see that it's not quite as good as that 4K footage coming out of the gimbal. We're also not going to be able to shoot in ProRes or log or anything like that, so we're losing that ability by using that action mode, but you don't need a gimbal if you use it. But I really think that the gimbal does a really great job of taking the footage and just really stabilizing that sprinting, because if we look at the three of them side by side here, you can see that when I'm holding the gimbal, that is really pretty steady. I've got the iPhone handheld footage, which obviously is going to be all over the place, and then when compared to the action camera mode, it's good and it's usable, but I definitely, if I was in a situation where I was filming for a client, I wouldn't want to go down to that 2.8K. I'd want to stick with my 4K, so I think I definitely would stick with the gimbal for that because it does a really great job. Now, I will also note that Insta doesn't recommend doing high activity sports with this or high action stuff, as I noted in my other Insta360 gimbal video, but I think that it can handle what we're doing here. And with this phone clamp, it does work pretty well, and I really think that it's something that it does a great job at. Now, one thing to note, I am using an iPhone 16 Pro Max with a UAG Monarch series case. So this is a pretty hefty case, and I don't have the hard drive attached to this, but I have also attached a Lexar hard drive, the iPhone 1, and it handles that pretty well. So that is really the best content creators bundle, if you will, that I think you can get, is that hard drive with this iPhone, and it's really, really good. So one other thing that we haven't covered yet is the 360 photo mode that this camera does. So it doesn't just do 360, it does pano, it does a whole bunch of other photo modes if you want to use them and you're into it. And so you can come in here, and if you go to photo pano mode, you're going to have the 360 degree pano, just like you did with the old model. And you've also got the 180, the 240, and then you've got this 3x3 shot mode. So it's really kind of cool. It does, the 3x3. So it's going to take 3 images here, 3 images in the middle, and 3 on the right, and it's going to make a really big image. And if you consider the fact that this is taking 48 megapixel images, every single image that it takes, I mean, that's a really big image, and that's a lot of detail in an image, which is really, really cool. And it does all the stitching inside the app and then exports that directly to your photo library, so you don't really have to worry about it. And I mean, that is really, really cool. Now, we've also got a really cool mode here. So if you're doing any kind of filming or vlogging, it has a built-in teleprompter. So up in the top menu, you just click the little A, the little TV with an A in the middle of it and lines, and that's gonna give you this teleprompter. And as soon as you hit play on this thing, it's going to read line by line, and you can adjust the speed and the size just like a regular teleprompter, but you're gonna be looking right at the camera. So you can copy your notes in there. That's really a cool feature, and I'm glad they added it. They also added hand gestures, so we can start and stop recording. We can, with our hand, that will turn on single tracking. If we do a finger up, the L shape with our hand here, you can have a multi-person tracking. And then if you do two finger, the peace sign, that's gonna start and stop recording or take a photo. So just keep that in mind. That's something that this gimbal does, and it's really cool that they included it. And then if you're shooting in a low enough resolution, because it will not work in anything over 1080p 30, you can use the face filters, which is going to go ahead and it's going to like soften your face. It's going to slim, brighten, or it has just an auto mode. So there is a lot of built-in kind of cool features that this gimbal does if you want to use stuff like that and you're into it. I prefer to shoot in log or ProRes, HDR, and get my footage from the camera and then do all my post-processing after the fact. But if you want a one-stop shop and you don't want to worry about it, you can do all of that in the app. So just to go over the different controls here. So this is a touch-sensitive dial. If you flick it to the right or to the left, you're going to go to the different modes, time-lapse, video, whatever that may be. You've got your zoom wheel here that is for your zoom. So if you hold it, it's going to zoom in really slowly. You can also set this in the menus to be fast, medium, or slow. If you kind of rock it really quick, if you kind of tap it, if you will, it's going to jump between your different lenses, which is a much preferred zoom method if you're trying to keep image quality. And then you're also going to have the ability here, if you press the C button, it's going to go ahead and start a 360-degree continuous pan filming. The minute you tap the custom or C button at the top, you just press it once. If you go ahead, let's stop that there. So if you press it twice, it's going to put you into pano mode and go, jump over to your photo modes. If you press and hold it, it's going to put you into the barrel roll mode, and that's going to auto start recording again and do the barrel roll. Now, if you press the infinity wheel over here, if you press it once, it's going to flip the camera around and show you the front-facing camera. If you press that twice, it's going to put the camera in portrait mode or landscape, depending on where you're at. And if you press it 3 times, it's going to flip you back to the most recent mode that you were on. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if you press it 3 times, and also if you press and hold the infinity circle, it's going to jump you straight into your photos and your edits. So that's just something that if you want to get a quick shortcut into your images, you just press and hold that infinity wheel and it's going to jump into your images for you. Now you've got the M button down at the bottom here. If you press that once, that's going to change your gimbal modes. If you press that twice, that is going to reverse. So if you were at FPV, it's going to go to pan follow and so on and so on. And then if you press it, so if you press the M button 3 times, it's going to put the gimbal into sleep mode. And if you press it another 3 times, it'll wake it up. And then if you press and hold it, it's going to go ahead and shut the gimbal off completely. And it is a preferred method. You can grab it and shut it while it's on, but if you want to protect your motors and stuff like that, you're going to want to make sure that you at least put it into sleep mode, if not completely powering the gimbal off before folding that arm. It'll become second nature, but you want to make sure that you do that just to protect your motors. So you've got the shutter button or the record button on the left. If you press that once, it's going to start or stop recording and or take a picture. So that's just your buttons. Now you've again got the zoom wheel, which gives you the ability to roll the gimbal, and also you set it to rack focus, which is really, really cool. And then of course you've got the joystick, which allows you to pan, tilt, and control the gimbal that way. Another thing that you've got is you have the ability, if you go into the upper right hand corner, you'll see this little arrow. It'll present a QR code to you. You scan it with another device, iPhone, Android, whatever it may be, if you have another device with you, and then you can remotely control the gimbal as if you had like a remote controller, and you could put it on a tripod somewhere, and it actually works pretty well. It's not flawless, but it's pretty nice that they included it. One of the other buttons that this has is the trigger on the front. So if you press and hold the trigger, it's going to lock the gimbal and lock all axes, as we've discussed before. If you tap the trigger once, it's going to select randomly, most likely the person in front of you, something to AI active track. So it's going to just auto kind of be like, okay, that's what I'm tracking. If you tap it again, it's going to turn the AI active track off. And then if you press and hold the gimbal, you're going to get active plus, and that's that quick, kind of sport running, whatever you're doing. You want quick action with the gimbal and you want to respond really quickly. You need to press and then hold the trigger, and that's going to activate that active plus mode. All right, well, that has been my review of the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I love this gimbal. This is something I'm going to be keeping in my bag with me. I took it with me to a video shoot the other day, and I loved how compact it was. It fit right in my camera bag. I didn't even notice the extra weight at all because it's super compact. I love that it's a battery bank. I love that it folds up as small as it does. I love the new tripod. I don't like that the app kept crashing on me, but that's about the only thing I didn't like out of my time with this gimbal. I definitely will be keeping this and keeping this with me in my bag because my iPhone is getting to the point where I can use this as one of my extra like B cameras and get some great footage. And so the ability to just unfold this gimbal, throw my iPhone on it, I can keep it in my UAG case. I don't have to worry about that. I can throw a hard drive on this thing and I'm good to go. That is just something that is priceless to me, and I really love that I can do that. So if you're in the market for a gimbal and you want something to get you super stable footage, you want to learn about gimbals, you're a content creator, definitely pick this up. It's got everything from beginner to mid-level gimbal abilities. I would say even some advanced gimbal abilities, and it gets your feet wet for a very, very low price. I mean, 150 bucks if you don't get the content creator version of this is not a bad deal for a gimbal with this many features. And I really, again, I love Insta360's gimbals, and I'm not paid by Insta360. I bought this from Best Buy with my money, so this is my honest opinion. I really am happy with this gimbal, and I can't say enough good about it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, share, and we will see you in the next video.